This is the acid-base titration pre-lab video. In the cabinet on the far right, you'll find the 150 milliliter beakers. In the cabinet between lab stations 6 and 7, you'll find graduated cylinders and flasks. And on the other side of 6 by the pennants, you'll find the burettes and the funnels. In the drawers 15 and 16 by lab station 1, you'll find the right angle clamps and the utility clamps, and underneath your lab benches you'll find the stands and the burette clamps. At your station you should have a setup that looks something like this. You might replace the graduated cylinder with a waste beaker though. To set up the drop dispenser, you're going to need to take apart your syringe, and you're going to have to put together the tip. It's not technically a syringe like that, but just a gas syringe. There are the pieces there. You're going to screw them into each other, and you're going to do so that the red handles align with each other. And you'll notice that you could do it a couple different ways. So make sure that the red handles are aligned, and then the white tip goes into the end. You can see that's the thicker end down there. Once that's done, then you can screw it into the bottom of the syringe. And again, if you're right-handed or left-handed, you can do it either way. And then you'll hold it up with the utility clamp on the ring clamp. The pH sensor has a buffer in it, so you're going to be very careful. Don't spill the buffer, please. Also, there is a rubber O-ring around there. Don't lose it into the pH buffer. You'll take those off, and then you'll slide that into one of the holes in the drop counter, and then it'll go right into your sample. When you put it back together, you're going to want to take the lid and put that on first. Then you're going to want to put on the O-ring and push it up pretty far. Then put on the bottom, what am I trying to say? The jar that has the buffer in it, and then you can push the lid and the jar together and screw them together, which shouldn't be a problem. And that way you won't spill any and won't get the O-ring stuck in the jar. Over in the hood is the acid. You'll see it's a very large 1 liter volumetric flask, which is used to give exact volumes. Sometimes if you have to mix things together, you want exact volume, that you use that instrument. Use a pipette pump, and you're going to put in 25 milliliters. So that's 2 pipette pumps and then a half. It's a 10 milliliter pipette. There is the distilled water, and you're going to need 50 milliliters of that, and there's a graduated cylinder there. You can just get right about 50. If you have a little bit more, a little bit less, it will not affect your calculations, and that's something to think about. That could be a good question for a test, or the whole procedure here could be a good question for the test. You also have phenolphthalein, and the dropper doesn't actually go down far enough, so we have a different dropper for that, but we're going to keep that other dropper as a lid so that it doesn't spill. You just pull up a little bit with the Pasteur pipette, and then you're going to put about 3 drops into your beaker, which you've already added the acid and the water. Phenolphthalein we don't need a lot of, and I don't want to waste. So after you add your 3 drops, if you would put the excess back into the phenolphthalein jar and then reseal it up, and that way it won't evaporate because it's a very volatile liquid. Then you'll have the base, the sodium hydroxide, in another volumetric flask. And there might be 1 or 2 of those. I believe I need to make some more of that. You can add that, maybe take 50 milliliters at a time. Whenever you use the burette, you're going to need to rinse it out, and to do so appropriately, or you need to kind of clean out the equipment, and you need to rinse it 3 times. So you can spin the tube and then dump it out into your waste beaker. After you do it 3 times, and you want to let some run out the tip so that it fills the tip, so you can void air bubbles. And these are a couple of common errors. AP exam likes to talk about them. Right on. So when you use the pH sensor now, that was the model number 1. Model number 2, you're going to use the pH sensor and the drop counter, and you need to rinse off the tip of the pH sensor before you put it in. And then you have your drop dispenser, and you're going to put the base in there, and you have 2 stopcocks there. The reason is that you can really control the flow a lot better. The bottom one you open all the way up, and then the top one you open it up, and you've got your waste beaker underneath. You're going to open it up so that it does about 2, maybe 3 drops per second. You're safer with a little bit slower just to make sure. So you get it till it's 2 drops per second about, and then you can use the bottom stopcock to close it. So it is either all the way on or all the way off, and when it's all the way on, it just does 2 drops per second. So you're not fiddling with that, which is kind of a nice feature of this drop dispenser. Once you've done that, you've got the waste beaker, set that aside, and put the drop dispenser directly over the crosshairs of the drop counter. So it'll go right through that hole. Then you're going to want to turn on your spark, and then it'll start to turn on. The button's on the bottom. And you're going to want to build, and you select pH first, and then fluid volume. Then you select the graph button, the top left, and it'll give you a graph, and it'll show you the pH on the y-axis and the volume, fluid volume in milliliters on the x-axis. You don't have to calibrate the pH sensor or the drop counter, that's already been done. Then you hit play on your graph, which is the lower left-hand corner, and release your stopcock and start swirling. When you are finished, you're going to see the full graph. You're going to let it run until you get to a plateau on the top, and then you're going to turn off your bottom stopcock, and you're going to see this very nice graph like that. You're going to hit the button in the lower left-hand corner that will, you're going to stop the graphing, but you're going to hit that graph button, and then in the upper left of those options, it gives you a cursor button, and you can find the midpoint, the steepest point of that curve, to find the equivalence point. And you can use the orange arrows on either side to move that cursor so that you can find out the exact volume at which that happens. Maybe it's pH of 7, who knows. Don't forget to take the quiz that confirms that you watched this fantastic video. Thank you, and see you in class.